Welcome to ScaleUp Radio Shorts, the podcast that brings you bite-sized insights from top business leaders. I'm Kevin Brent, one of your hosts.
And I'm Granger Forson. Together, Kevin and I founded Smart 90, the proven 90-day execution system for scaling businesses.
In each episode of ScaleUp Radio Shorts, we'll be diving into the key takeaways from our full-length ScaleUp Radio interviews.
Today, we're comparing notes from our conversations with Ben Lowndes of Distinctive Communications and Mark Nicholls of Tectona Partnership to uncover some common lessons about starting and growing a business.
So let's start with Ben Lowndes. He's a director at Distinctive Communications, a PR and comms consultancy based in the southwest of England.
Yeah, they've been around for about 3 years now and have built a team of 4 with a wider network supporting them. I found it interesting that their work is structured around 3 pillars: people, places, and purpose.
Absolutely, Granger. It's a really clear and concise framework. They provide strategic communication support primarily to organizations in the built environment, education, skills, professional services, and third sector. It gives a real focus on connecting with the right audience.
Definitely, and I think that focus on people, places, and purpose really helps them cut through the noise and build trust with their clients, which is super important in the current environment. Now let's turn our attention to Mark Nicholls, who runs Tectona Partnership.
Yes, Mark's story is equally compelling. He runs a company of 17 highly qualified finance directors.
Wow, that's quite a team.
It is. They focus on providing financial help to small businesses, those typically under 20 million turnover, who have issues with their finances or need help solving them.
So they're really diving deep into the numbers and helping these businesses get a handle on their financial situation.
Exactly. Mark mentioned that many businesses need financial help, but either don't recognize it or try to do it themselves. Tectona steps in to provide that expertise. So, Granger, one of the fascinating things when you look at Ben and Mark is where they started, right?
Absolutely, Kevin. It's always interesting to see the different paths people take to entrepreneurship. Ben, from Distinctive Communications, he kind of led a spin out, didn't he?
He did. He effectively took a team and a client base with him from his previous role. Gave him immediate traction, but I can imagine that came with some pretty complex transition challenges.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's like managing people through change. It can be really difficult.
It can, yeah.
Mark, on the other hand, took a completely different approach with Tectona Partnership. He started organically with a partner.
Very different, wasn't it? Building from the ground up, focusing on building a team of associates, probably a slower start, but maybe more control over the direction of the business right from the start.
Yeah, no, definitely. Each approach has its pros and cons, but it highlights that there's no one single way to start a successful business.
Building on that, Granger, both Ben and Mark really hammered home the importance of building relationships and networks for growth, didn't they?
They did, Kevin. It's fundamental. But what struck me was that both of them, in retrospect, felt they underestimated the time it takes to build a recognizable brand and generate consistent referrals.
Yeah, it's a long game, isn't it? Ben mentioned that about 80% of his work came from his network after 3 years, which sounds pretty good, but it still took that time to get there.
Exactly, and Mark's experience was even more pronounced. He estimated it took 7 or 8 years to achieve a steady flow of referrals, with a massive 93% coming from the network. That's a significant investment of time and effort.
It really highlights the need for patience and persistence in building those relationships. It's not just about quick wins, it's about building something sustainable over the long term.
And also about the channels you use to generate those relationships. Mark explicitly said that paid advertising didn't work for his business, really reinforcing how key relationships are.
So moving on, Granger, it was interesting to see how both Ben and Mark had very different strategic focuses, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Kevin. Ben's whole approach is centered around communications. He's using that 7-step comms strategy, storytelling formula, really focusing on how his clients can articulate their purpose and impact.
It's all about getting the message right and making sure it resonates.
Precisely, he helps clients cut through the noise, connect with their audience. Whereas Mark's strategic focus is very much financial, isn't it? Helping businesses with the numbers.
Yeah, Mark's all about that informed decision-making, helping clients understand the financial levers. So I guess if I'm a business owner, I am thinking either I need someone to help me communicate what I do better, or I need someone to help me better understand my finances.
Exactly. He's helping them understand the numbers that are driving their business, and then obviously help them identify areas for profitable change. Yeah, 2 very distinct approaches.
But both equally valuable, I guess, depending on the needs of the business. It's interesting how different lenses can be applied to achieve success.
Definitely. It just goes to show that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding the right strategic focus for your particular business and your particular goals, and also your personality. Are you comfortable more dealing with numbers or with words?
And how about team and culture, Granger? Both these guys are running teams that aren't all in the same place all the time, right?
Absolutely. It's the modern way, isn't it? Distributed teams, hybrid working. It's interesting how they both approach it because culture is key when your team isn't physically together. It needs to be intentional.
So how did Ben keep that culture alive?
Well, Ben uses what he calls fixed points, in office days, structured virtual check-ins, making sure there's still that human connection, but he also talked a lot about trusting his team to get the work done. No micromanagement, which I think is key.
Yeah, trust is massive.
Massive, and giving people the autonomy to manage their own time, but still feeling connected to something bigger than themselves.
So what did Mark do?
Mark's team is a bit different. He relies more on online communication tools like Teams, but also tries to build in social events. He mentioned regular gatherings, like going to a brewery together.
That sounds fun.
Anything that gets people face to face and chatting, because you have those water cooler moments when you see someone in an office. You don't get those when you are not physically there, so you have to manufacture them.
Definitely, it's all about finding what works for your team, isn't it? And recognizing that flexible working is something staff really value now.
Exactly. It's not just a perk, it's an expectation. So you need to make sure you are proactive in the way you make sure your teams are joined up.
A happy, connected team is a productive team, no matter where they're working. So, Granger, running a business isn't always smooth sailing, is it? What challenges did Ben and Mark talk about facing?
No, not at all, Kevin. And it was really insightful to hear them both be so open about that. Ben, for instance, he learned pretty quickly that some of the services he thought he needed when he started out, well, he didn't.
Right, the classic startup overspend.
Exactly that. He figured it out by reviewing the cost base, which is a lesson for everyone, isn't it? Keep an eye on where your money's going.
Absolutely. And Mark, what challenges did he face?
Well, Mark admitted that he tried to do everything himself at the beginning, cutting costs, wearing all the hats.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Me too, and it's a trap. He realised it was actually distracting him from the core stuff like networking and getting new clients. That's a really important lesson to learn.
So getting the right people to do the right things.
Every time.
They were both really open in the interviews about dealing with overwhelm, that sense of there's just too much to do. How did they deal with that?
I think Ben just said he worked long hours, didn't he? Although even he admitted that wasn't sustainable.
Yes, I think he said that he was looking at delegating some of the tasks he isn't best suited for.
Whereas Mark was talking about COVID and just how the uncertainty at that point made him feel, especially around working with clients on site. But ultimately, he focuses on clarity for clients by improving finances and identifying levers to improve profitability in their business.
It's great that they've got these ways of being able to work through that as a business and a business owner.
A key thing to realise is that running a business is that it's tough. There are always going to be challenges. It is all about having the right strategy in place.
So, Granger, what were some of the key takeaways from Ben's interview? Some of those golden nuggets of wisdom?
Well, Kevin, I think one of the most interesting things Ben said was about not changing things just for the sake of it. He called it not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I like that. So, sticking with what works, even when starting something new.
Exactly. He kept policies from his previous company, which were successful. It's about being smart and not reinventing the wheel unnecessarily, isn't it?
Absolutely. What else stood out?
He was a big advocate for focusing on culture and flexibility, and how that's really paid off for him in building a strong team.
Yeah, that whole work-life balance thing is so important these days, isn't it? Especially for attracting and keeping good people.
Definitely. A happy team is a productive team. And finally, he mentioned the importance of building strong partnerships with local suppliers, accountants, IT support.
Makes sense. Having that support network around you can be a lifesaver.
For sure. And he also stressed the importance of strategic focus and having a plan rather than getting bogged down in what everyone else is doing, which is important as it allows you to filter all the noise out.
Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about Mark Nicholls from Tectona Partnership. What were some of his key lessons and good decisions, Granger?
Well, Mark was very focused on efficiency and using his time wisely. He learned early on to delegate non-core tasks. Things like IT, insurance, even managing their own finances, and instead focus on what would get the business working.
Right, stick to what you're good at and outsource the rest. Makes sense.
Exactly, and he was a big proponent of managed growth, staying at a manageable size so he could oversee activities and provide support.
So not chasing rapid expansion at the expense of quality.
Yeah, he really valued that personal touch, and that was clear with his emphasis on account management, checking in with clients regularly to make sure they were getting the value they expected.
The personal approach always wins, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and he had a bit of a serendipitous win with his office decision. He didn't take on office space initially, which turned out to be a blessing when COVID hit and remote working became the norm.
Yeah, flexibility is key.
And finally, he really emphasized the importance of selecting the right team, getting the right finance directors on board through referrals and people they knew and trusted.
So people who you know and trust and therefore believe in.
Exactly, and who believe in you.
So Granger, what would you say are the big takeaways for our listeners from these two interviews?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Kevin, is that relationships matter. Both Ben and Mark emphasized the critical importance of building strong networks and focusing on the human side of business. But the key thing is, it takes time.
Absolutely, and don't underestimate that time.
Exactly. I think another really key takeaway is to be strategic, Kevin. So, to really think about what you're doing and why.
Yeah, I agree. It's not enough just to get your head down and do the tasks in front of you.
So you need to think strategically about your communications or your finances.
Or both.
Absolutely. And if this has piqued your interest and you want to delve deeper into either of these interviews, go and listen to the full episodes with Ben Lowndes and Mark Nicholls.
You can find them, along with all our other ScaleUp Radio episodes, by searching for ScaleUp Radio wherever you get your podcasts. And that wraps up this episode of ScaleUp Radio Shorts. Thanks, Granger, for helping unpack those interviews.
My pleasure, Kevin. Always good to chat about what we've learned.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember to check out Smart 90, the proven 90-day execution system for scaling businesses.
And don't forget to subscribe to ScaleUp Radio Shorts for more bite-sized insights to help you on your scaling journey.
Until next time, keep scaling.